everyone. Welcome to Author Chat, or welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm excited to talk to author Jeremy Flagg. Jeremy is a cross-genre writer. He writes in sci-fi, alt history, and YA, and I'm super excited to talk to him today. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've done a video chat. Been so stuck on this Clubhouse thing that I forgot what other people look like.
So give us an overview about all of the stuff you're into here.
Whew, that's a big question. So mostly, I'm known for writing superheroes. That's kind of my big thing right now. I have 9 books out in my superhero universe, and it starts as kind of an action adventure. That's where I get the alt history, because one of the series takes place during World War II. And the book I should have finished a couple days ago, leans much more into the hard sci-fi. So my superhero universe is kind of this slowly expanding and growing thing where I get to kind of expand. But my first series out in the universe was actually a young adult suburban zombie high. It's as ridiculous as it sounds. It was originally meant to be for teens. I'm sure they love it, but it's mostly adults reading it, finding me poking humor at teenagers. So I like as the inspiration comes to me, I want to check it out. I need to see what's going to happen with it. And so, yeah, it's just kind of wherever the world takes me. And right now it's the hard sci-fi and the superhero universe, but my superheroes need a little bit of loving. So later this year, there's going to come out some steamy superhero romance. It's currently on my laptop as a giant note of finish your plot outline.
And what's your series called? Your superhero series?
Oh, see, I'm bad at advertising myself. The universe is called The Children of Nostradamus. And the first 4 books is called the Night Quartet. Basically, I was in the ER one time and waiting as you do. And on the TV, there was a documentary about Nostradamus, and it was 4 hours long, and I watched the whole thing. That's how slow my hospital is. Thankfully, it wasn't a real emergency. But it got me thinking as they're talking about this doomsday thing coming up in November of 2012. And I was like, what if instead of the end of the world, it's the end of mankind and I see, and there we go, poof, an entire universe is born.
That sounds fun. And then you also are a graphic designer in addition to your author hat at Cover Villain. How did you, which one came first, the writing or the graphic design?
So my background is actually in graphic design. My undergrad and my graduate degree are in graphic design. And once I got out of that, I wound up going into education, and I love education. It's great and everything, but I started my own design firm doing branding for anyone who paid me, basically. And it kind of fell away as, life got busy and I focused on the writing. And I was talking to another superhero author, and they do their own covers, and we got to talking, and they're like, well, you like writing, you like graphic design, why don't you do graphic design for books? And I was like, that is so logical that it went right over my head. So I've been doing it since July, and it's been awesome because I'm back into doing graphic arts. And it's kind of cool because, I get to come up with these really interesting designs. I get to study the market, which helps my writing stuff. And when you were branding like a small clothing boutique, you didn't get to do anything creative. It was always, here's what's expected. Whereas book covers, oh, your book cover has demons on it, or angels, or shifters. Okay, let's make some art out of this. So it kind of weirdly blends my passions. So it's my happy spot now.
And are your novels, they're not graphic novels, right? You're not doing like the comic style of art, just the covers.
I should say no, but of course, we got to have more projects. A graphic designer or a sequential artist that I went to high school with, and then later we bumped into each other in grad school. We have a project that we're going to be working on as a graphic novel that will be hopefully coming out later this year. I've always been a big comic book geek. I mean, superheroes it's a given. But for all my art degrees, I can't draw to save my life. So I wrote it. She's doing the illustration for it. It's a beautiful marriage that thankfully someone can do artwork, because I can Photoshop all day long, but ask me to pick up a pencil and
It's a different skill.
Yeah, and now my art teachers would just tell me, you need to stop. So yeah, that'll come out later this year. But all of my existing stuff right now is purely prose, because I can write about superheroes all day long, just as long as I don't have to draw them.
I hear you. I mean, I'm in all of the graphic design. I couldn't do that to save my life. I was one of those people who attempted to do their first book cover, and after a long time of trial and error and hating the entire process, I'm like, no, I will gladly pay someone else to do that part for me.
Sometimes, here's some money, you're saving me so much time. I can go work on my other book.
Yes, I would rather do the writing than do that, because they can crank it out so much faster than I can. They study the market on what each genre is, specifies for book covers to make it on brand, and typography is a whole other. I don't do typography. Drives me bananas. It's not my talent. So I'm
even for my own books, I have an artist. Like, I do all my own type and my own design, but I hire an artist because I want someone else to validate my ideas. Because if you're working on your own stuff, and I could do it, but then I'm working in a vacuum, and I've seen way too many authors be like, this looks awesome. Sure.
Well, yeah, you're proud of your own thing, and then after a while it's like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. So
yeah, I had to, I was with a publisher for a while, and the book covers weren't bad, but when I got them back, I was like, we're starting from scratch, because this ain't working.
So you were originally in the graphic design world. What inspired you to start writing?
Oh, so I've actually been writing, and I know this is such a cliche thing. Everyone's like, oh, I've been writing as long as I can remember. My dad was in the military, and this would have been in the mid 80s. And my dad would bring home his work laptop, and the laptop was a suitcase, a massive suitcase. And it was so heavy, I couldn't even move it. And the only thing it could do is, the screen was about that big, and it had maybe 5 lines of text. Mm-hmm. And I would write out stories about video games, that I was playing as a kid. And I remember my dad opening up his laptop and finding all the stuff written in his very, military documents. And I remember him asking me, like, did you actually write this? Yeah. Where did you get this idea from? I don't know. Like, it's a thing. And since then, my dad is always like, he saw that, he was like, I'm going to stick with that for the rest of his life. And every time he decides to change his major or say he doesn't like his job, I'm just going to keep telling him, you should go be a writer. So eventually I was like, okay, everything else has been fun, so let's try this one now. So but when I really started writing novels was in like 2009. Oh, maybe even earlier than that. I really disliked the high school position I had at the time, and the kids were driving me nuts, and the administration was horrible human beings, and I needed a way to deal with this stress without losing my mind. So I wrote a book in which I release a zombie plague into the school, and just let's see what happens after that. It was great stress relief. Not very many of the students make it to the end of the book. And it wouldn't get me fired. So it was kind of like that great therapeutic. So since then, you can kind of tell my mood based on the plot of the book. When the words genocide get dropped, you're like, oh, he was having a rough day.
Rough week.
Yeah. So it's always just kind of been there. And then when I started doing that, and someone bought the book, like I put it on Amazon so I could buy copies, and someone else bought it. And I was like, who would buy a book by me? Like, even my mother didn't know it existed. So
it's great.
And then I think my first royalty check from Amazon was like $6.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, I was like, I could work with $6. I wonder what would happen if I actually put effort into this. And it just kind of, it started from there. And now I'm a graduate professor of creative writing.
So that's where it all went. It's kind of snowballed from there, huh?
Yeah, apparently I did it well enough that people were like, we'll give you a job because of it. Okay.
What comes to you first, the plot or the characters?
Oh, I will generally say there's a premise. So the superhero book actually comes from when I was in middle school. Me and my best friend would write stories, and he would draw out the characters and I would write out the scripts because we were going to be comic book famous, of course. And I got to like issue like 108. Like there were thousands of pages of scripts. And when my parents were moving their house, they were like, do you want all of this? And I was like, sure, there might be something of use in here. And I was reading it, and it was very derivative of like X-Men and Avengers, and very, couple of kids paying homage to the thing they loved.
Well, yeah.
And I was looking at it, I was like, I wonder what would happen if you aged this story up. And I wonder what would happen if this became the catalyst. So the characters, their names existed and nothing else, because, plotting and character depth as a 12-year-old isn't going to happen. So I had this premise, and then so I started plugging them in and then making their personalities fit with their powers and the dynamic of their occupation. And so the plot, I would say, preceded by very little. And as the plot grew, the characters had to grow into the plot. So once the initial premise is there, I kind of try to keep them well balanced. And when it's not well balanced, I'll get to the end of writing a novel, and I have a shelf of these will never see the light of day. And the one that I'm going back to work on right now, I got to the end of the novel and I realized the character didn't fit the plot. So I need to go really tweak the character and have them fill in this massive gap of like an emotional void that I didn't fill. But yeah, that's been kind of my premise so far. The romance that I'm working on right now, my characters have backstories. Like I know where they went to school. I know everything about them. I haven't written a single plot element yet, which is kind of unusual for me, but the characters are now kind of writing their story and okay, do the hard work for me.
Yeah, just let it flow. Just put it all down.
I like someone made the quote of, I don't write novels, I just write characters' adventures. And that's kind of what's happening here. And so far it kind of fits the romance archetype. I might have to shoehorn some things here and there, but yeah.
And the characters are superheroes. They're superheroes and having romance.
Yeah. And, everyone wants to know what would, steamy bedroom time would be like if you had some superpowers. So we're making sure that there are no questions left unanswered.
So steamy romance superhero. Yeah. What happens when you have superpowers and you get to love time?
Yeah, it's
you'll have to read his book and find out.
Yeah, it starts with a bang, it'll end with a bang. There'll probably be a couple more bangs in the middle.
So, how do you get your creativity to flow when maybe you don't feel like sitting down and working?
I kind of take a very jerk approach to this one, and I say this, and it does not apply to anyone else but me. But whenever I hear an author say, I'm not in the mood to write, I was like, oh, that brain surgeon also said, I'm not in the mood to save your life. It's your job. Put words on a page, but they're not going to be good words. How are those words any different than the words from yesterday? Just you rearranged them. So I'm pretty strict about my writing. It's a minimum 1,000 a day. I shoot for 2. Sometimes we get there. And today I'm not in the mood to write. I literally found every reason to not write. So that means TV's got to be off tonight. By 9 o'clock, I'll be in my office and I'll write until I fall asleep in the computer chair. So I'm just sheer stubborn.
It's
going to happen whether I want it to or not.
Just do it anyway. I agree. I'm very protective of my, it's not what I do all the time. So the time that I do set aside for writing, I'm very protective of that time so I can get words on the page. You can't edit a blank page. So
exactly. You can take a crappy story and edit it to perfection. You can't edit nothing. So just like I literally have 2 books right now that they've been written. They are not fit for consumption. They will sell great when I am done with them. I know what's wrong. I just need to go through them. So I have zero patience for my muse isn't speaking to me.
Not if you want to make it into a career, you can't say that.
Occasionally I'll call my boss and say, I'm just not feeling going to work today. And he's like, suck it up. So
there's a class there for you. You have to go.
Yeah. So if my boss can do that to me as my own business, I have to be that boss that sometimes just says, suck it up, just do it. Sometimes I hate my boss, but.
So how many drafts typically do your books go through before you publish them?
So more than I want is probably the easiest answer. The book that's sitting on the shelf right now, I got to the end of the plot and I forgot that there was no antagonist. So this is like a travel log of a hero not really doing heroics and getting to the end. Like it. So that was, I wrote the first draft as a blog. So it was all first person, very like granular, like diary entries. Then I transferred it into third person, which I don't ever normally do that. It was just because this was my website content. So the story is really good, or the character, there's no story. There's really good character development and no plot. So I will go through, so as it stands, it'll be the second draft. And then from there, I might let someone read it and do beta reads, but this is gonna sound horribly egotistic and I'm not that type of person. I don't like having beta readers look at the work because they're gonna change stuff, they're gonna wanna change stuff that doesn't matter. Like no one cares what the hair color is of my character, just let's move on. So I might let an author friend read it. We do some collab, but even then it's generally like, your middle part drags, you need to drop a scene or two. Okay. And then it goes out to the editor. So generally by the time I hit the publish button, there's been 3 passes on it. And then you can tell there's only been 3 passes because then when the audiobook gets made, my audio proofer goes through and was like, dude, found your typos. Oh, let me go fix those right now. But I'm trying to get it down to 2. Those authors that are like, oh yeah, I write pretty clean and it's 1 pass and done. And I'm like, I want your writing.
Yeah, that's not my style.
It took me probably the first book, my first superhero novel, probably took me 2 years to write. And now I'm annoyed if it takes me 2 months to write a novel. And the novels that I wrote last year, each one of them took me 5 weeks. It was a strict deadline. There was no and if or but. I didn't go to sleep until I made my word counts. And it was 5 weeks for the first draft, 1 read through, so maybe 2 or 3 days to the editor and then back. And those were the cleanest books I've ever written. They were shorter, they were in first person. It was a very different type of writing for me. So it's almost making me wonder, maybe I should do some more of that.
By shorter, what was the word count? What is considered shorter for you?
70,000 for those. My superhero books run 80, 96, 107, 117. I just had to check this today because I was getting crazy about stuff. So the romance books, I want to get them closer to 60, which means stop trying to include all these subplots and this fluff, and you don't need all this crazy world building. And
right. That's why those kind of books in your sci-fi are so much longer, because you have to build these worlds. And your romance will definitely need to drop down just a smidge.
Yeah, I love writing horribly complicated plot lines. And even in the romance one, I'm no complication. Like every time I get this, like, what if no, stop that. So I had what I thought might be, ooh, maybe this is a little too complicated. So I pitched it to another person. They're like, why would you ever do that? Thank you for validating it. I knew what I was doing. I should not do this.
What are your top tips for a writer, for a first-time writer who's sitting down to write their first ever story? What would be your top tip to them?
So I am, I got writing seriously, not publishing, but writing seriously because of NaNoWriMo. And I started that in 2006, and I've done it every year. I don't always complete it because it seems to be I'm always editing during November.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing is, one, your butt needs to be in a chair. There's no way around that. You're not going to write the next bestseller if you don't write the book.
Yeah.
When I was the municipal liaison for NaNoWriMo, we would have meetings of like 20 or so people, and it flabbergasted me. Out of those 20, 16 of them talked about their novel and never wrote it. And you're married to the romance, and don't get me wrong, we all want to have a typewriter in a little villa off in the northern stretches of the Highlands of Scotland.
Yeah.
That's great. It's not going to finish your novel. So get your butt in your seat, and what is the saying? Perfection, something, something. I don't know. Your book's not going to be perfect. Hit the publish button. Get over it. I work with a writer. He's local. We just sit in the cafe and write together. And I'll always check in with him before I leave. And I'm like, oh, how'd it go today? And he's like, I think I finally got this sentence the way I want it. We've been here for 3.5 hours. I wrote a book. And no reader is going to sit down, especially with fiction, and go, that sentence was beautifully crafted. It just doesn't happen. So, and I'm not saying put out a crappy product. It just realize that you're perfect. One, you may think this is the perfect sentence, and you'll quickly find out like, oh, you forgot a comma. So you kind of have to just accept that this is the best that it can be at the moment. Go forward. So those are like my two biggest tips for anybody.
Well, and your perfect sentence could get cut in editing. I mean, that's the thing. Don't drive yourself crazy over one sentence, because in the grand scheme of the book, the editor might go, yeah, no, that doesn't really fit here. It needs to go. And
I find people who get down to like that granular level are intentionally dragging their feet because there's a worry of something down the road that is causing them to want to slow down. Either they're scared about the agent finding process, or they're scared like, oh, I'm going to get a 1-star review. I live for my 1-star reviews. They're awesome.
Join the club.
Yeah, like you get your first 1-star review, you post it up there, and we will all drink in your honor. So I feel like just do it.
So what does success look like for you?
A typewriter in a villa in northern Scotland.
with a drink there right next to you, typing away and pulling the thing out and balling up the paper and throwing it across the room.
Which weirdly, I'm engaged to a Scot and moving to Scotland, so we're making progress on it.
Gonna do it.
So my definition of success overall would be, I'm not concerned with making writing my full-time job. If it could support me, great. It has in the past. I live in a very nice house that a book that should have tanked did really, really well, and why, I don't know. So like I have found financial success at random periods. It would be nice if it was a little more consistent.
Yeah.
But part of moving to the UK is to drop my cost of living down so that I can get rid. I currently work 5 jobs, like at various times and parts, and I live by my calendar of crazy. So I guess my definition of success would be to take things a little bit easier. The graphic design business, awesome. I can do that kind of at a leisure. Take clients when I want them. My writing, I do that because I love it. And teach a university class here and there, sure, just so I can keep having people call me professor, why not? But yeah, that success for me would be to slow down the hustle.
I agree. So what's up next for you? What's coming out next?
Ooh.
Do you know?
Yeah, so there's a conundrum happening in my universe where I have I completed the first series in this universe. I completed the second series. I'm working on the third right now. I have book 1 in that ready to go. I have another series in that universe, book 1 ready to go. And then I'm currently thinking of abandoning this for a few months and go strictly into the romance. So I have all of these book 1s, and as every self-published author knows, like, you don't want to just keep releasing book 1s, you need series completion. And I really want to go into the romance. Like, I'm having way too much fun. I apparently like talking smut way too much. And not just smut, but like scholarly smut. Like, it's all with like educational value. So I really want to go hop into that, but the problem with it is romance readers would destroy me if I released a book 1 and then was like, oh, I'll get the next one in 4 months, don't worry. So if I switch into that, I have like a 6-month commitment of only writing these books. And that scares me a little because it's an unknown.
Yeah.
I know how my sci-fi does, but the romance, you know, there's a potential for a big win or a massive time suck.
Yeah. You should also know about romance, though. There are readers that won't pick up a book 1 unless there are at least 3 that are out. So unless you publish 3, they don't even start the first one.
Thanks, George R.R. Martin. I won't pick up a book until the last book in the series has already been written. I won't watch something on Netflix until it's been renewed for season 2 because I'm not investing in our short-term attention spans anymore. So I am one of those people.
So yeah. Where can readers find out more about you and your work?
The easiest way to find me is remyflagg.com. So remyflagg.com. All of everything in all my different series is all there. But if superheroes are your jam, childrenofnostradamus.com. The romance hasn't really gotten a webpage yet because I haven't thought that far ahead. We'll get there sooner or later.
As usual, I will have all of Jeremy's links down below in the description box, so be sure to check those out and stay tuned for his superhero romance, Sexy Times, with a powerful twist. And give us a like, a comment, engage to keep the algorithms happy if we're here on YouTube. And thank you guys so much for watching today. And thank you to Jeremy for joining in and having a great conversation.
Thanks for having me. I love these.